In thinking about my lesson plan for food, I looked up 4 different kinds of articles that are somewhat interconnected. The first one is really about what is the science and nutrition behind food. So here in this article, some of the content that I would be able to use would come from the explanation of fats and sugars and how they make us feel. And down here, there's a food pyramid that I thought would visually give students an understanding of what types of food make up like a good diet. It's not that you can't have any sugar or fats, but just understanding how foods can make us feel. Overall, this material is very dense, and I would say some of it is even hard for an adult to fully grasp and put together. So as part of the inquiry arc is helping students scaffold sources. And in this case, I would use excerpting, which is, I would just use some parts of this. Like for this article, I would just use the food pyramid. And the next part that I talked about was food insecurities. So in able to think about eating healthy, first there is food scarcity, and maybe it's even amongst the students. And we wouldn't want students to feel like they're being stigmatized by not having the right kind of food at home to eat if there is just a shortage of food, period. So this food insecurity addresses the bigger picture of the vulnerable population. And then a follow-up to this, I would definitely pull local resources like food banks, soup kitchens, and other kind of community-based gardens or food resources that students can have access to with some help from their parents. So that's the other component of my presentation. And part of this would be to use modifying, which is just giving some definitions of scarcity and what is a food insecurity between hunger and just not having food, a place that might be going through like a famine. And that could also tie in some sort of global component to this lesson plan. So then I have moved on to the hunger and sustainability. So going into the global component, I wanted to address ending world hunger and information about the possibility and how scientists would go about doing it. So this is just one of the articles I pulled up, and there's something that's even more recent that would be relevant, but this one I thought is a good example of authors who, just by their name are like from a different part of the world that might be able to bring some insight on this issue. And there are some like good keywords, science words that students would be able to pull into their word bank. And this one I think would still fall under excerpting, just condensing some of the resources here. The final one is water and how that affects our food and general health. And this one, I would use the annotating technique, adding short descriptions into some complex ideas like, chemicals in our water, that some are good, some are bad, and pollution at our water source that affects our food. And students will be able to kind of take what they want from each of these articles and do a presentation, whether it's a video presentation or a drawing. And one of the ideas was using a word cloud to talk about different ways to help solve the world hunger problem. So I think using the inquiry design model is really getting a sense of the students understanding what they already know about food, what they eat every day, and to do a deeper dive into what the foods contain and why some foods are better for our health, and asking students to come up with some ideas of how to eat a balanced diet. So it pulls a lot of information from students' experience, and at the end, they will be communicating what they already know and using some of the evidence from these 4 articles, such as how water ties into our food and how a lot of world hunger and food insecurities are problems that we can solve on a daily basis. And in terms of digital tools, students can make videos, they can edit images and music, or they can do some sort of spoken word introduction or poetry behind the images that they find that ties into these articles. One major challenge is that these articles are written for adults and not just everyday adults. Like some of the things that are mentioned in this article, I would have to look up and find other ways to describe it to the students.